spending time with her husband, friends, family, including her 12 grandchildren. In her spare time, she connects and celebrates with the women involved in motorsports, taking you behind the wall about their journey of life, racing, and how they juggle everything to make it all work. Welcome to Racing Girls Rock Podcast. Strap in, window nets up, the pedals are down, and when the green flag drops, we go.
Hello, everyone. This is Melinda Russell with Racing Girls Rock Podcast, and it's my pleasure today to have as my guest, Deb Broadwater. I met Deb through her co-host for Fast Lap podcast that they have. Deb and Chrissie have a podcast that I encourage you to listen to. It's awesome. And when I talked to Chrissie, she said, "Oh, you need to interview Deb. She's got a great story." So I can't wait to hear, Deb, all about your story and how you got interested in racing. But first, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself, anything that you're willing to share with us, and let's get to know you a little bit better.
Okay. Thanks for having me. I'm Deb Broadwater. I'm co-host with Chrissie on Fast Lap with Chrissie and Deb. And I'm 30 years old. I live in Maryland, and I have been watching racing since I can remember. It's been one of those things that I always did and continue to do. And when I had a friend who was wanting a women's perspective for the sport, he writes for tobin.com, and he's like, "Can you give me something?" And I had never written in a public capacity before. You know, obviously I went to school, so I wrote a lot of papers, but I'd never written anything for public consumption. So I wrote a first part of it, and that's kind of how I met Chrissie. And we started talking a little bit from there. And then the second part, I got a ton of industry feedback that I was not expecting, because I had never written. I wasn't like super well known in the community at all. But people like Bob Levine reached out to me, Tommy John Martins, Jonathan Morrissey of Rich Mark Flores reached out to me after I had put like a feeler out to see if anybody from the industry wanted to talk about women in NASCAR. So it was kind of crazy how that happened. And then Chrissie and I continued to interact and talk a little bit. And the next thing you know, she's like, "I'm thinking about starting a podcast." And I didn't quite know where she was going with it. I was like, "Oh, that's awesome. That sounds like something that, you know, would be awesome to do. If I can help in any way, let me know." I didn't realize that she was asking me to co-host with her. Mm-hmm. And then she asked me, and I'm like, yes, 100% yes, let's just do it. I like to talk. I write pretty, but I'd rather just talk instead of write. Writing stresses me out just a little bit. So it took us like 2 weeks to come up with a name, and it's been full steam ahead ever since.
I know. She said that it took off so much more than you guys expected.
Yeah.
And she shared some of the people that you guys interviewed. Who would you say would be some of your favorite interviews that you guys did?
Oh, it's so hard to pick, because there's so many people that we've interviewed who have ended up being really close friends of ours, and the connections that we've made are amazing, but the friendships that have came out of us doing this is beyond anything that I could ever have imagined. Brent Wentz was a really one of my favorites. Rich Pickrell, he was a hauler driver for Hendrick Motorsports, Junior Motorsports, and then did R&D with Chase Elliott. He was amazing. Some of his stories were fantastic. I'm one of those fans who really like the old stories, or the stories that you don't hear all the time.
Yeah.
I like hearing from the people who you don't hear from, or hearing the stories. Like Rich had some amazing stories about his time as a hauler driver. Some really fun stories. Like at one point he got pulled over by a bunch of Maryland state troopers just so that they could see the hauler. The Bay Bridge, of all places to be pulled over. So I loved that. Brent has some really cool stories, and then he's got that vintage shop. And I recently have gotten really into that because I was hanging out with my dad, who is the one who we can give literally all the credit that I'm a NASCAR fan for, was my dad. I'm 100% a daddy's girl. So he watched the races and he was a huge senior fan. And that was our thing, and it still kind of is our thing. So he has all of these old shirts, all of these old shirts. And I was like, Dad, can I have these? And he's like, what are you going to do? Are you going to sell them? I'm sure they're worth money. And I was like, oh, no. I'm going to wear them. So I've started this collection, and Brent, who owns Days Gone By Vintage, has kind of assisted my vintage collection along because he has some really cool stuff. As far as drivers, it was really awesome to talk to Anthony Alfredo, because I'm a huge Anthony Alfredo fan, and how I became a fan of his was kind of a funny story. So it was really cool to talk to him. It was really cool to talk to Spencer Boyd and Corey LaJoy as well. Corey has an amazing story. And really love talking to Natalie Decker. We've talked to her quite a few times, and she is just a remarkable human.
She's one of my favorites, and her and her family become friends, and she's lovely, beautiful inside and out.
Yes.
And her mom and Aunt Sue too. They're just wonderful people. Love the Deckers.
I met her and her mom in Daytona the year she finished. I think it was fifth.
I want to say fifth. Yeah.
I think it was fifth. And the picture's actually right there.
I see it.
It was funny because we were on the infield, and driver entries were happening, but I couldn't get very close. So afterwards, I kind of walked up by the truck and I was like, hey, Natalie, can I get a picture? And it's wet. The grass is soggy. I'm covered in grass. And she like kind of tiptoes closer to me so she could get a picture. And I talked to her and her mom, and they're just wonderful. Yeah. And I hope that she does all the amazing things in the sport, because I can't say enough good things about Natalie.
I agree. Yeah, I agree. So let's go back to Anthony Alfredo. How did you get to be a fan of his?
So I was a Matt DiBenedetto fan, still kind of am, still, support him and what he's doing. And my phone number, the last four of it is 2188. So when Matt got the 21, I was a junior fan as well growing up. So my number was literally perfect. And I just made a random tweet about it being funny, like my number's perfect. And he actually liked it. And I was like, what is this? Like, I'd never interacted with him before, didn't really know a whole lot about him. And I was like, why'd he like that? And then he said, oh, I'm driving the 21 too. You should share some of that fandom. And I was like, oh, okay. And then he used his hashtag fast pasta, and I'm Italian. So I was like, okay, sold, done, easy. Yep. And it was like, it kind of just blew up. There's a bunch of his fans who welcomed me very readily into the fan group. We call ourselves the Sauce Mafia. He calls us the Sauce Mafia. So it kind of ballooned from there, and it's probably one of the favorite fandoms that I've ever been a part of, because they are such a tight-knit group. We all talk to each other. We're all really good friends. We can't wait to meet each other. It's just really cool to be, because I think Junior Nation is so big when I was really into Junior, that it was you have a couple friends who are really into Dale Junior too, but it's like this core group who are just always talking to each other, always there for each other. And it's just really cool to be a part of something like that.
Yeah, that is really cool. It's funny how an experience like that will make you a fan. So I'll tell you a quick story. I'm a Kyle Busch fan. Now, I like lots of racers, but I became a Kyle Busch fan because the first year I went to my first NASCAR race in person was probably 10 years ago or so, maybe. And and it was at Michigan, and my husband and I did like the big experience where we sat up in the special seats and had the special parking. We went all out. So my one thing I wanted to do, Deb, was find some kind of really cool sweatshirt. And I wasn't a Kyle Busch fan at the time. I just wanted like some kind of really cool, bright colored sweatshirt. So, women, we're all about how we look, right?
Yeah.
So I go from holler to holler, and they're black and gray. Black, gray, and white. There's nothing cool.
Yeah.
Even the colors on the sweatshirts are nothing special. So then I turn around, I turn the corner, and guess whose holler I see? M&M's, red, green, orange, yellow. And it's just like, oh, Melinda, here we are, So I bought this really cool sweatshirt, red sweatshirt with M&M's and all the stuff on it. And so that night we went to dinner at an Italian place, and I had the sweatshirt hanging on the back of my chair. And we're finishing eating, and this, they were probably in their late 20s, early 30s. This guy and gal come over, and they said, oh, not to interrupt, but we see you're a Kyle Busch fan. Well, I'm not going to say no. His shirt's hanging on the back of my chair, right?
Yeah.
So I said, yeah. And so they said, well, we work for him. We're his PR team.
Oh,
so they sat down and visited with us, and that was, that was right when like he and Samantha, I think, had just gotten married. So however many years ago that was, they had just gotten married, and he had kind of changed from the bad boy.
Yeah.
Kind of not so much the bad boy, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I had a lot of questions about him, and they said, he would give you the shirt off his back. He's amazing. And so I was so happy then to talk to them. And then they gave me 2 hats. One said crew something, and one said like fast qualifier or whatever it was. And it was the you can't just get those hats anywhere,
No,
right?
not at all.
And so they gave me these hats, and I was a fan. And now since then I've seen him several times and had it. And so he's autographed those and a bunch of other Kyle Busch stuff I have. So it's funny how you can just become a fan, right?
Yeah. It's just like, you can't quite put your finger on it sometimes of why you're like, okay.
Yeah.
Really like this person.
Yeah.
And then like when you meet them or you get to hear stories about them and the person they are, you're like, okay, that cements it. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. And I like a lot of the drivers. I really do. I'm a Justin Allgaier fan. He's from Riverton, Illinois, and I have some friends that live there. And there's just different reasons why some drivers I think appeal to you more than others, but really I really do like them all. But if Kyle's racing for the lead, I'm obviously going to be cheering for him. But,
I have my favorites, but then there's like, I have a really soft spot for the underdogs.
Yes, me too.
Yeah. And so like, there's a lot of them where I'm like, if they win, okay, I'm cool with that. Like they're a wonderful person. They're really great. They're a good racer. They deserve, to win. So I'm kind of the same way. Like there's not anybody that I can really say, oh, he's winning.
Yeah, no, me either. And it's this year's been really interesting too. Look how many winners we've had.
Yes.
And, I'm pulling for Chase and Kevin Harvick and of course Denny. I want those guys to all get their win. But it's just been so interesting because in years past you look at the race and you say, oh, it's such and such a track, so and so is probably going to win, and 9 times out of 10 maybe they do. And this year it's like, I can't wait to watch the race. I wonder who's going to win.
I use driver averages to set my fantasy because I'm in a couple fantasy leagues, and I really didn't know anything about fantasy league, or I'm not like super invested, but I'll use that to like set my drivers. And then I'll watch the race and I'll be like, that driver has fantastic averages here. What is going on? And you haven't seen that in a couple of years. And I think it's really fun to see the new winners or the people who haven't won in a while.
Yeah.
Like McDowell winning the front. I think that was fantastic. I was ecstatic for front row.
Yeah.
that and everything that they've been able to do since that is awesome.
He's run pretty well the rest of the season, So yeah, I love the suspense of wondering who's going to win. And today's race day, the day that we're recording. So we're gonna watch races today and tomorrow. I'm sure you and I both. And there's a young man from Kalamazoo that is racing trucks, and Carson Hocevar.
Okay.
So he's I think in the lead for the rookie points, and great family. I've watched him race since he raced quarter midgets against my granddaughters, and can't help but cheer for that kid, when he's from here in Kalamazoo. So keep him on your radar and cheer for him. Great family, great kids. So Deb, tell me a little bit more about, you watched racing with your dad, and you were little, and now you've just grown up to be this awesome race advocate, especially, I think for, like you said, the underdog, and maybe even for women in motorsports, I know. So what would you say is the biggest challenge for people like you and I to convince women who have never been to the race to come and watch a race?
I think the biggest challenge is women who aren't into racing or know anything about it. I think the biggest part is educating and welcoming is the struggle that I see a lot. Like on social media, if a woman who is a fan makes an opinion, they may be told, no, you don't know anything about this. I actually just saw that last week. One of my friends was talking about contracts, and somebody replied to her and said, you know nothing. And I'm like, I just very kindly was like, please don't say that to women.
Yeah.
Like, especially women fans who are trying to learn and want to learn. Like that just put the damper on the whole experience.
Yeah.
Like, I was in Dover a year, and I had on a Junior Motorsports shirt, and I sat down and I was having a good time, and it was like pre-race stuff was going on, and I cheered for Danica as she went by, and the guy said, oh, so that's why you have a Junior Motorsports shirt on. And I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah, you're a girl, so you're gonna cheer for the girl, right? And I was like, I've been a fan since before I can remember. Like, this has always been me. I'm a junior fan. I'm gonna support whoever's in a Junior Motorsports car because of that. Like, because she's a girl has nothing to do with the fact that I'm sitting here in the stand paying the same money as you are to watch a race, but yet I didn't say anything about your choice in driver.
Yeah.
Like, so that's that. I feel like that's the biggest struggle, that they're not taken seriously. People sometimes are not welcoming. Some people are super welcoming, and it's fantastic. And I strive to be one of those people. If I see a new fan at the track or at social media, I try to make sure that they know, your points are valid. If you have any questions as a new fan, you're more than welcome to reach out to me. There's a bunch of other people that are willing to help you learn. If you want to be a fan, we want to welcome you.
Well, that's interesting that you have exactly the same feeling I do. So last year, pre-COVID, I was working on about 15 NASCAR events at tracks. And the object of those events were to get women to the track who had not been there before. So we were going to have an event and have like a panel of some wives or people that work at the track, and, an event geared towards women. Men were welcome too. But of course, COVID shut us down, and so we didn't get to do any of those, which was really sad, because we were going to do even had one at Phoenix the day of the Xfinity Championship, which would have been amazing. So
that would have been
luckily I've made friends at that track because I'm in Arizona, part of the year. And so it'll happen in all due time, and other tracks too. But we know that if we can get someone, anyone, man or woman, to a race, they're going to come back.
Yes.
They're going to become a fan. Because, and I encourage people, honestly, to spend that extra money and sit in the infield to watch the race.
Yes.
Because it's a whole different experience.
It really is. I usually get fan zone passes for Richmond. And part of the time I'll sit in the stands, but then part of the time with their new fan zone, it's fantastic, by the way. Dennis Bickmeyer and the team at Richmond did a fantastic job on that fan zone because you can go to and from in the middle of the race. I will do. And it's a totally different experience.
Yes.
And you are watching from the inside looking out. You're looking out at all the fans, looking at the track. You get to see the cars a lot closer.
Yep.
And it's an entirely different experience. Same thing with practice at Bristol. I got to watch practice from the garage actually at Bristol a couple different times. And it's different. It's a totally different experience. And I feel like if more fans got to do that, hopefully when when COVID's over and everything opens up, they would get a lot. I feel like they'd feel different about a lot of things in the sport as far as what goes on in the garage and how hard the teams are working. Because the whole time that car's out practicing, that team's working. As soon as it gets in that garage, that team is on it. Like it's not, they're working really hard. It's not like, oh, I guess we should make that change. Maybe we should do that now. It's like, okay, changes now. Fix this car now. Let's do that.
Right. So my friend Liz Bristello, who I think you've interviewed,
yes,
known Liz for a while. I tell her she's my daughter. I call her my daughter. But anyway, she might be at the track 10, 12 hours.
Yes.
And I can remember we went to Chicago this was probably 3 or 4 years ago. Went to Chicago and for it was 3 race weekend, and it was in the hundreds. It was brutal. I mean, even as a fan, I was in the infield the whole time on that concrete and the asphalt. It was brutal. And they were working 10, 12 hours in that. And, people who just come and sit in the stands and watch the race, love it. Love those people. But they have no clue what happens behind the scenes. And it's amazing what those people do. But
Liz, I think mentioned at one point tire weight and moving sets of tires.
I know.
Lifting sets of tires. And I was like, how are you doing that in 100-degree heat?
And she's little.
Yeah, and she's little. And it's amazing to me how much they do. And I don't think, and that's kind of like the reason we like to have crew members on, because we don't think that the casual fan understands quite how hard it is to do what they're doing. And I think any insight that you can give to a fan about how incredibly hard it is to do what Liz and some of these other people are doing, it's astounding.
Yeah, it really is. And so, my goal is as soon as things get going again here, where I can get back to the track and make some plans. We're gonna do those events. In fact, Bristol's already talking to me about doing it. So, we're gonna do those events where we're gonna have some women panelists. They'll have to pay a little something to come to it, but it's going to be really geared towards the women. And I can't wait to do it. I had all these plans and everything worked for last year, and so I've just kind of laid them aside because it's frustrating not to be able to do it. But I am going to go to Texas to the race. My granddaughter lives there, and so she works for Nutrien, which is Jeb Burton's sponsor. And so I'm going to Texas and spend some time with her. She's not been to a NASCAR race yet. So that's going to be fun.
She's in for a surprise, isn't she?
Yeah, she is. Absolutely. So Deb, when you're older like me or older than both of us, what do you want your legacy to be? What do you want people to say about Deb Broadwater? How did she impact motorsports?
Oh, that's a tough one. I think I just want people to remember me for being welcoming and kind and giving some attention to people that you don't hear from. Like, I want people to be like, oh, she talked to this person and they gave some amazing stories that we would have never heard
Right.
if they hadn't thought to
Yeah.
include them. And how, like, me and Chrissy collectively have included some people that you have retired, even like Rich, and you wouldn't have heard those stories. And maybe give a little bit of a different perspective.
Yeah. So have you watched, which I'm assuming you have you watched Lost Speedways?
Yes.
Okay, so I binge watched it. I watched the first one and I couldn't stop. And now, so according to Dale Jr. and I absolutely, my number one podcast to listen to is Dale Jr. Download and Door Bumper Clear. Yeah. And I seriously, I usually lay in bed, go to bed and put my headphones in and listen to Door Bumper Clear before I go to sleep. And I will literally lay there and laugh out loud. They make me laugh. I love those guys. And the poor gal, she just gets so much crap from them, but I love those podcasts.
Yeah.
The Lost Speedways, you're kind of doing the same thing in a way. And I love that because you're reaching out to those same really people in a way that he's doing for the Speedway. So, you know, I love that. I love listening to those stories.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was kind of our inspiration when we were like thinking of like, you know, where do we want to go with this? Like, what do we want to talk about? Who do we want to talk to? And I think that Dale Jr. had in his podcast had a lot of how we kind of shaped ours. Like, you know, he has some kind of guests that you don't hear from. He's got some more popular ones, but then with like Lost Speedways and how much he's into the history of the sport, even down to the tracks, that was kind of our inspiration for, okay, let's bring some people on that you don't hear from or you haven't heard from in a long time. Let's talk to them. Let's hear some stories.
So how did you come up with those names? What kind of research did you do to find out about those people?
Well, it's kind of funny actually. When we had Liz on, we became close friends with her and we've been helping her with Torqued. We've been, you know, like really putting her out there because she deserves some notoriety.
I agree.
Her in her clothing line deserves some notoriety because
I agree.
There's not a whole lot of that out there and it's fantastic. So me and Chrissy have been collectively grabbing things and being like, okay, we bought this, you guys should buy this too because it's really nice. So she kind of gave us Brent.
Okay.
I kind of forget how that happened. And then Brent kind of gave us Rich.
Yeah, that's what I figured.
Yeah, so it's kind of, we haven't really reached out to anyone. Since, I don't know, last year at some point. But our guests have been really great with being like, okay, so you really like talking to us. I had a great time. Here's somebody else we think we should talk to. They're interested. They want to talk. We want to hear the stories. Bring it on. Let's do this.
Yeah.
And it's been kind of a snowball where we really haven't really had to reach out to anyone.
Right.
Kind of strange, but kind of great at the same time.
Well, and I kind of figured that's probably how it worked because I mean, it would take a lot of research to go back and find who did this or that. And then at that point, you don't even know if it'd be a good interview or if it'd be somebody that had a story, but somebody who knows somebody. And that's what I always say to people. And even, you know, when you're looking for sponsors or that, you know, you might come to me for a story or a sponsorship and I might not be a good fit, but you don't know who I know.
Yes.
And so you always have to have in the back of your mind, who does Melinda know? Who does Deb know? Who does Chrissy know that would be a good fit? And so, you know, my friend Lori and I are working on some educational things that we might do a little road tour.
That's exciting.
To some tracks, you know, smaller tracks, you know, maybe some quarter midget or where kids are younger or whatever, and do some training with them and have a little road tour event where we can talk to them about how to shake hands, how to look people in the eye, how to do an interview, all those kinds of things that you need to learn. If you want to be a successful driver, you have to be the whole package. Natalie Decker's the whole package. She does a great interview, and so we were just talking yesterday, she and I, we're working on a road tour, so we'll have to see how that goes. But
that's exciting.
Love the stories, the older stories, that you're doing. I went back and looked through your podcast and just love it. I love it. So Deb, what have we not talked about that you'd like to share with our listeners?
I don't know.
So you're going to Charlotte.
Yes, and we're super excited. That's a funny story because Chrissie and I have not met yet. She lives in Florida, I live in Maryland, so, and COVID, it's been tough, but we talk constantly. We are on the phone every day, and it may be about the podcast, it may not be about the podcast. It's funny because we'll say we share the same brain because we both have a lot in common. We're both Aquarius, so if anybody follows horoscope, that's two of us together, which is interesting at some points, but it comes down to like the silverware we have is the same.
Really?
We have the same silverware. We both got a dog treat maker because we both have the same breed of dog, and we did not know that the other person had gotten this dog treat maker, but we both got the same dog treat maker. We didn't know we had the same dog, and then she sees and I see, and we literally have the same exact dog but a different color. So like it was instantaneous how we clicked. So we haven't met. We've been literally chomping at the bit for this. We've been planning this since November, so it's 3 days away, and I'm super excited to finally get to meet her. And she's not been to Charlotte, and I've been to Charlotte twice.
Okay.
So there's things that I'm like, okay, we've got to go here. We've got to do this. You've got to see this.
Right.
So I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really looking forward to her first time in Charlotte and getting to meet her for the first time in person.
So now are you going to do some Facebook Lives?
We are going to, we might do Facebook Live, but we were thinking about doing, actually just doing a podcast one night and streaming it on YouTube. Yeah. And getting to sit together in the same space and have a conversation just about how our trips went, what we've done, who we saw.
You should definitely do that, but I can see that, when you first meet and different things, just little short Facebook Lives.
Yeah.
Because that's just going to be so cool. I wish I was coming to hang out with you guys. I can be your mother, but I still, I'm kind of a fun person.
Actually, that's kind of funny because I met a woman in Dover, and they had on the same driver's gear as I did at that time, and he wasn't a well-known driver, so I walked over to them and I was like, "Hey, I like your hat." And I was not the type of person to just walk up to anybody at the track and start talking to them. I was not like this. So we start talking, and that was 2 or 3 years ago now. And we're going down there. We've been down there to stay with them. We made so I call her my racetrack mama. So I literally have a whole second family in North Carolina that I only have because I went on a racetrack and said, "Hey," and it's amazing, and I love her to death.
It is. It's just the people awesome. You meet are amazing.
Yes, the people you meet who, it's unexpected. Mm-hmm. I always say unexpected friendships are kind of the best because you're like, all of a sudden there's this person and you talk to them all the time, and like you look back and you're like, how did I not have this person in my life?
Exactly. So well, people call me Mama, So I'll be your mama. There you go. And she'll be your racetrack mama. It's just so fun to be able to hear and share with other people of all ages. You're 30, I'm 65. So, but we have a lot in common because we both love racing. We've made great friends. There's just so many things that racing will bring to a person to fill a need, maybe a friendship, to have something you're passionate about. And that's the thing I try to get across to other women.
Yeah.
Racing is for women. It is not just for men. And, you know, you go to the racetrack and there are more and more and more women there, which is great, but we're still a little bit outnumbered, I think. And I look at a whole row of men with their sons sitting there watching a race when we were in Phoenix. And I was thinking, where's the mom? Where's the sisters? You know, and it's kind of like, get them to the track and they'll become a fan. That's all we got to do is get them to the track. And it's not just NASCAR. It's Kalamazoo Speedway. It's Slinger Speedway. It's South Bend Motor Speedway. It doesn't matter. You know, English Creek is out in Iowa, and that's where, you know, I'm hoping to go do a little event type thing with my friend Lori. I don't care where you go, but go to a race and experience it.
Yeah, I met a girl on Twitter. Her boyfriend races in Jennerstown, PA. Not far from me. We're actually closer than I thought we were as far as, and she's like, hey, I got some free tickets. Come see me. So like, it's almost like you build when you're a fan and you finally like get to the point where you're like, okay, I'm going to start like talking to other fans. Like, I want that. You kind of build like almost like a tribe of other fans.
That's true.
Those connections are just amazing.
Yeah.
Like you may have never met them in person, but you talk to them constantly for years. And that, I feel like that's kind of the best thing about NASCAR and being a fan is your access to people is unlike any other sport.
True.
And the friends that you make.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know that I have a girlfriend that is a huge football fan who we talk football all the time, but I could name easily 10 or 15 women that I talk NASCAR with constantly.
I agree. Yeah.
And I feel like it's just totally different than any other sport in that aspect.
It is. And even even when like, if you're watching the race on TV and they're talking to the driver on the last couple pace laps before they start to race, you're not going to talk to the quarterback before a football game.
No.
Unless you're some big time news person, you know, and the fact that we get to hear interviews with those people and that we can go at some point again, we'll go through the garages and do all that. There's no other sport like it. And I just encourage women all over. And if your husband's not into racing, then you get into racing, you get excited about it, and you bring him to the track. Because he doesn't have to be the one dragging you there. You drag him there. And I guarantee you go to a race, you're going to be a fan.
Easily.
Yeah.
That's kind of why we do the fan live podcasts that we do. We do them once a month usually, and we'll get a bunch of last night we did a male one, but we've been doing a lot of female ones where we'll get female fans on. And last one we were able to do, we brought Natalie on. The one before that, we brought Liz on, so that they can other fans can kind of get the same experience that we get.
Right.
I feel like we're really lucky that we've been able, like, it took off like it did.
Yeah.
We're able to reach out to people and they want to come on.
Exactly.
Or that people are even in our Twitter DMs like, hey, can you want to interview me?
Yeah.
Here's what I've done in the sport. Or a driver, hey, I want to talk.
You know, it's interesting that you brought that up. So I do a digital magazine, which you probably already know. And so I was kind of during COVID, it was hard to get people as interested in staying with racing as I was. So anyway, I made this little post and I put it on about maybe 15 Facebook pages of tracks in different places. I've had over 300 names given to me of women who want to be either on the podcast or interviewed. And there was a comment on one of the pages, and it was from a man, no offense, guys, and he said, well, just look at NHRA. There's all kinds of women, kind of like, it's like, okay. And so I responded, I said, I'm aware of that, but there are hundreds of women who nobody's ever heard of who have great stories. And those are the women I want to talk to. And, when they send me a little blurb about, I did this and this is how I got started, and there's amazing. In fact, I'm sending this is just the women I have the emails for.
Wow.
I've got another 250 or more women that I have to reach out to and get their email so I can send them the information.
That's amazing.
I'm going to be busy.
You are going to be busy.
Yeah, but it's a good busy.
Yes.
Good busy. Yeah. Well, Deb, is there anything else you'd like to share? Have we covered pretty much everything? Where can people find your podcast?
We are everywhere. We have a Facebook page that we really actually probably should post on more, because we're not really we're on there, but we're not on there.
Yeah.
We have a Twitter account, at @fastlap_podcast, I believe.
Okay.
And you can listen to us on, if you want to see our YouTube lives, we're on YouTube, Fast Lap with Chrissie and Deb. We are on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Buzzsprout. Feel like there's one I'm missing. Spotify.
Well, if we can't find you on one of those, they're in sorry shape. So
yeah, you should just be able to Google us and we come.
That's what I figured, but I wanted you to have a chance to tell people where to find you. So I'm going to encourage all of you to find Deb and Chrissie, Fast Lap with Chrissie and Deb, and get subscribed to their podcast. It's like my Monday nights, I'm listening to Door Bumper Clear. My Tuesday nights, I'm listening to Dale Jr. So, and then I listen to Stacking Pennies.
Yes.
And there's a whole bunch of them now that I listen to, and I just love listening to other people's perspectives. And most of them they're men. They're pretty much all men doing these podcasts. And so
I think that we're the only all-female NASCAR podcast.
I think so.
There's a F1 version of us who I've recently stumbled upon, and I'm not huge into F1.
No, I'm not either, but
see two other girls kind of doing what we're doing, and I love it.
Yeah.
But so I think that we're the only ones right now.
Yeah, I think so. So I encourage everybody and listen to the podcast I did with Chrissie. That was just dropped last week, and then this one's going to go. And I encourage you to listen to these gals and be a part of it and be active. Let them know you're listening, and if you have suggestions for them, that somebody that has a good story, reach out to them and let them know. Same for me. I'm always looking for good stories and good interviews, and so we're always open to that, aren't we, Deb?
Yes, always open to that, and always just anything, reach out to me. I'm easily accessible. I don't mind talking to people that I haven't talked to or interacted with. If you want to talk racing, I'm here. I will talk racing all day long to anyone.
I know, that's awesome. So Deb, I'm going to let you go. I've really, really enjoyed talking to you, and I wish I was coming to Charlotte. Darn.
Yes, you'll be in Bristol, right?
I may be in Bristol, but I know for sure I'm going to be in Phoenix, and that's championship weekend. Be a great time for you girls to come to Phoenix.
I think I'm going to Florida in October, so it may not be accessible this year.
Okay.
So if you're going to come to Bristol, let me know.
Okay, I will for sure.
Anything that you're conjuring up in Bristol.
Oh yeah, I'll stay in touch, because you guys would be great panelists for the events too. So that would be great to do that. So we've got to collaborate on some things. I think that would be awesome. So reach out to these gals, if you want to talk racing, if you have any questions about anything, we're all accessible and we want more women at the track. And Deb, I hope you have a great weekend. I know Charlotte's coming up, and I can't wait to watch those Facebook Lives and the podcast from there and see what kind of fun you're having. So
yes, there will be a ton of video and photos taken that weekend.
yeah,
So
actually the whole time. So it's been great talking to you, and as like I said, we're going to stay in touch. We'll get those women to the track, won't we?
Yes, we will. Fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome.